Hello everyone, John Vincent back with you for our session here in NX University covering NXCAM setup documentation. During this session, we're going to talk about some of the different out-of-the-box formats for setup documentation, and we're going to be focusing on work instructions. So we have two different tool sets to use for setup documentation. The legacy tool is called ShopDocs, and the current tool, and the tool moving forward, is called Work Instructions. They both are very similar in how the formats are created, how modifications are made, but Work Instructions allows for more flexibility based on independent setups of what information you really need to give. So we're going to kind of dive into a general workflow for creation of setup documentation, as well as looking at how we can modify the out-of-the-box templates for our own use cases. So, as we dive into the topic of work instructions, a major differentiator from ShopDocs is the fact that we actually add a documentation operation into our program. And from within that documentation operation, we have the ability to select different formats, which all contain different information in different layouts. So as we go through kind of a general workflow, we'll start with the very first option in the out-of-the-box formats called General Instructions. General Instructions are going to be those kind of very high-level settings, really the same for every operation across the organization. Kind of just your standard rules, making sure that the same basic information is delivered with each production job. We are using some attributes inside of these templates to pull things like our part name and operation name, and we'll go through on how we can customize the out-of-the-box appearance a little bit to either use your company's names, logos, so on and so forth as we get into a little bit more in depth in this topic. Additionally, we can see that we're going to look at the different formats of some of the layouts of these different formats, and these are all created in Excel spreadsheets. So the general formats here, out-of-the-box formats, are all provided with your NX installation. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into NX right now, and here we have a completed program, a number of different operations. And just to show what this really looks like in terms of how do we add our documentation operation and how do we start defining what types of informations do we want to provide to the shop floor. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create a new operation. And under all the operation types, you'll see that we have a documentation option. And we can go through and specify that we're going to attach this to our standard program group, and we don't need to specify anything in terms of tools, geometry, methods, so I'll go ahead and set these all to none. So once I say OK and initialize my documentation operation, we'll see that I get a dialog with my various formats that are available to me, and I'm being prompted to start creating my sheets. What information do I want to have available on these various sheets? So I'll start kind of in a top-down manner here, and I'll start with my general instructions. So before I select this option, I do want to point out that I currently have my preview option turned on. So anytime I make a change to my documentation operation, I'm going to get an updated preview in an HTML format. So we'll see here, once I select general instructions, NX is thinking a little bit here, and I am going to get a preview, and let's bring it onto the proper monitor here, of my setup sheet. So it has today's date, basic information, it's pulling some attribute information for my part name, my operation number, and then the rest is all standard content that's built into my template. If you've used work instructions at all, you'll note that as you start clicking on things, you get a lot of those HTML kind of web page previews. I prefer to turn my preview off until I really want to see the latest greatest setup that I've created. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in my sheet title as general information, general info. That's good for me. And we'll jump back and take a look at our next slides here. As we go down the list of different formats available to us, I like to use certain formats for my own practice here. I usually start with general instructions, then I use my setup instructions. Setup instructions will have the ability to go ahead and take a snapshot of your part. You can add some custom instructions, text information, maybe setup locations, things like that, maybe how to mount your fixture to the machine tool, basic information. I do want to identify that there is a little bit of a bug, and I'll show how to fix this later on. It's only with this setup instruction, and if you modify this from the default. If you look at my slide, I have Swoosh Technologies in the name, and I've changed some different settings from the default value. But what happens here is we're missing our picture. So I'll show you how to fix that towards the end of this session. So again, just to take another preview here, I want to understand, or I want everybody to understand that we've created our first sheet. So now I want to add a second sheet to my documentation. This is the nice thing, and really the big differentiator between shop docs and work instructions, is the fact that you can kind of pick and choose what information do you need to provide to your machine operators for each individual operation. Perhaps I have a complex setup and I need to provide a lot more detail about fixturing, where I'm picking up 0 points. Maybe there's multiple 0 points to pick up. Maybe there's a lot of tools, not resident tools in the machine. Or maybe I have other easy jobs that are just very high level information. Hey, this is my XY0, top of the part is my Z, and all the tooling is standard resident tools in your machine tool. Just go ahead and start running. So that's where you get a lot of flexibility inside of work instructions. So here on sheet 2, I'm going to go ahead and select my setup instructions, and built into the template of this particular format, there's a couple extra nodes that appear under sheet 2 now. And I'll go ahead and just rename the sheet before I progress. Just naming my sheet. And now I can click on each one of these individual nodes, and in this case I can choose to select a particular camera angle, or I can do a snapshot of a current view, whatever I'd like to see here. So maybe for our example, I'll just go ahead and choose an isometric view, and then I want to add some custom text. So maybe I want to use some quick text, which this is a way that we can have some standard notes built in and have them accessible from a pull-down list. So you can see I can state review the fixture diagram for this setup. But maybe I need some additional notes that are not in my quick text, something a little bit more customized. For example, I want the operator to indicate this part. This is a casting, maybe it's got runout. So indicate runout within, I don't know, 10 thousandths. Alright, there we go. And at any time I can always display a preview here, and I'll get a display of what this particular sheet is going to look like, and you can see how the notes have been added to this particular preview. Alright, so now before we add our third sheet, we'll go back and take a look at some other options here. Maybe the next thing I want to add is an operations list, just to provide a list of all the operations in the order in which they're going to be completed in the program, and some basic information about that operation. Maybe what type of an operation is it? What tool is going to be used? What is the cycle time for that operation? And of course, we could edit these fields. Maybe we want to have speed and feed information, kind of whatever's important to your organization. So for my third sheet, I'll go ahead and choose my operations. And I'll just call this op list. And again, I can kind of work through these individual nodes, and I can choose if I want to display tools, if I want to just pick camera positions, whatever I'd like to see there. Same thing with the text box. Again, I can use my quick text, or I can add in more information on my own choosing specific to this this particular operation. And I can also include drawings. Perhaps I have actual drawings, drafting files of my fixturing or my part, or details of where I'm going to set up certain information or pick up work offsets. If those are embedded in the part or components of your assembly here, you can go ahead and reference those additional sheets. So that's going to be my op list. Let's go ahead and add another sheet, and before that, let's go ahead and just take a preview at sheet number 3. So you can see NX is going and taking those snapshots. You'll see that we're getting our list here of the basic information, and we can go ahead and do some other things. Maybe let's look at operation list. Let's change this one up, and I can still make my same choice, and this time if I want to list all the operations, I'll choose my program group. So again, maybe I program multiple operations inside of one part file. If I order them by program group, I can have my setup information broken by that particular setup. So op 1, op 2, op 3, however I'd like to handle it. In my case, I'll include all the tools here. Again, let's go ahead and preview. And we'll now see that we have our list of all of our operations in the order that they're being ran. You can see operation types, what tools are going to be used, the cycle time for those individual operations. So very flexible in how we can share our information with the shop floor. Similar aspect with tooling. That instead of having information listed by operation, we can have it listed by individual tool. Have what operations are being done by each individual tool. What is the total cycle time? What is our tool length and diameters, flute length, stick outs, all these different types of informations you could embed in your setup information. And it's always looking at the actual tool, not just coming off of a library of what the setup is. So if things are modified, maybe we pulled a tool from our library and realized, okay, we needed to stick it out of a holder a little bit longer, we can have that type of information here in our setup notes. And then once you have all your setups complete, we can go ahead and publish our work instructions. So again, publishing our work instructions, I'll go ahead and add in my tool list options here. I'll go ahead and just reference a couple drawings here in my program. And that's perfect. I'll say okay. Well, once we have this complete, we can go ahead and publish our work instructions. So when we publish our work instructions, we can output this in a number of different formats. So we can use an HTML format, just like we had been seeing or receiving for our previews. This will give you an HTML format that you can go ahead and maybe include on your network that your machine operators have access to. This can be exported as PDFs, spreadsheet files, XML files. Maybe you're just taking this data and putting it into some other system. Again, a lot of opportunity for handling the data in the way that you would like in your organization. So I'm going to go ahead and just export this as a PDF. You'll see, again, NX is creating the latest, greatest up-to-date snapshots, getting information for all the of all the operations, of all the tooling, and it's going to be creating this PDF document. So now it's important to note that we created those additional sheets, or multiple sheets in the documentation operation, and all of those sheets are going to be appended into one document. So in this case, I have a 7-page setup document. Here we can see our general information page, followed as we go down with our basic setup information, the screenshots I specified, notes I entered, Same thing now with my operation list and the appropriate information there. I can keep going down and look at maybe my tool list with some drawings. Maybe I'd want to put drawings of actual tools. Really whatever makes sense for your organization. Alright, so that makes sense to publish. I think there's nothing too complex there. So now let's go ahead and look at what does it take to really edit your templates. So we want some different information here outside of the out-of-the-box information. So what NX is really using is some of the HTML files that are created. We're exporting them from Excel, but that's what's being read, and that's how the data, the actual OWI files, the actual work instructions are being created. So we're gonna go into Excel, modify the templates, and it doesn't matter what we're changing. It can be using different attributes, adding fields, changing the size of images, changing colors, text, adding logos. The important thing is we have to know how to go ahead and publish this HTML file after we've made our changes in Excel. So the first thing we're going to do once we want to modify our documentation, we have to know which template we want to modify. Again, we're going to take a look here in the documentation operation. I want to change my general instructions format. So I'm gonna go into my NX installation, and in the mock resource OWI file is where all of these templates reside. So I'm going to be editing my OWI template for general instructions. This is an Excel file. You'll see a few other files with the same name, different extensions, folder for this. These things are going to get created when I publish this Excel file. So let me go ahead and edit this in Excel. And we can see our basic layout, how we have certain colors, size of some fields. Here you can see that we're pulling attributes from our part file, from our program, some variables, pulling out just a date. So again, regardless of how you go ahead or what you're changing, there's really not much difference in changing in how we publish the actual HTML files. So for this example, I'll go ahead and just change this color. It was blue, now I'm going to make it green. So you go ahead and make all your changes in Excel and save your Excel file. Once you do that, we're going to go to the Save As option, and we actually need to launch the More options. Again, I'm using Microsoft 365. Your layout might look a little bit different depending on what version of Excel you're using. But what's important here is I need to change my Save As type, and this is going to be a web page, which is HTML or HTML format. And I'm going to choose this Republish Sheet option. And I'll launch the Publish tool, and I'll say, okay, go ahead and republish this sheet. And we can close our previews here. And I'll close my Excel file. And now we've republished all those HTML documents. And if I go ahead and display a preview of my general instructions, we should see that we now have a green title bar here. So that's how you have to work through that process of republishing that Excel document. What it really did is it republished this template here, this HTML file, and it republished, if you need to grab pictures or anything like that, it'll create the necessary files here in the folder. My general instructions doesn't need that because I'm not outputting any imagery, but it would recreate these files if necessary. All right, so that is going to bring us up to, let's go back to our PowerPoint, this missing picture issue. Again, this is only for our setup instructions template. which here you can see that the files that are OWI_template_setup_instructions. If you go through and republish the sheet, you're going to break the link that is making that image appear. And it's due to a setting inside of the Excel file. We need to go in this Excel file, go to our Save As, More Options. We'll get our dialog here. And from this Tools window, we'll be able to pull this down and choose our Web Options. And come to the Browser tab, and we have to uncheck this option, Rely on VML, for displaying graphics in browsers. Now, I don't know what that really does inside of Excel, but I know having that checked will not generate a image for you. And when you go and uncheck that option in your setup instructions template and you republish your HTML files, everything's going to work as expected and as it works with the rest of the out-of-the-box templates. Just keep that in the back of your mind when you get into editing these out-of-the-box templates, that there is this one file that has a kind of an oddball setting in it, but at least now you know the answer. So once you do that, you'll get your image output on your setup sheet information. So that's good to know. So I hope this shed a little bit more light on work instructions, how you can modify your templates and customize them for your organization's needs. And I hope that you found our whole NX University experience beneficial, and we look forward to having you again next time. Take care.